Hey everybody, Bob Chick. I'm here with David Bay and Peter McGuff. We're here in Orlando for the Europa Games, the first of 4 for this year. The other show slated, of course, in Atlantic City, brand new this year, taking the place of Hartford. Dallas, of course, the big one. That's the first one that started it all off. And, of course, Phoenix. Next year, number 5 coming, boys, Charlotte, the 5th Europa show. So Ed and Betty Pariso doing a great job along with Scott Templeton and, of course, Eric Hillman, the CEO of Europa Sports. But let's get down to biz. We've got 3 pro shows, and we've got a big NPC show, probably looking at 500 plus in the NPC, David. We've got 3 pro divisions. Let's start things off with fitness and women's physique, and then, of course, we'll end up with the guys open. But fitness, pretty good lineup, 10 girls, but we got some good names in there.
Yeah, if you look at the lineup in fitness, Michelle Blank jumps out as probably the girl who's going to be a front runner. Ryle Grable, definitely some other talent here in the fitness division. You know, one thing when people talk about these lineups, well, there's not a lot of big names and stuff like that. Sometimes these are the fun shows to be at because you get a chance to see some of these people who are up and comers, really come out and shine and get a chance to, crack a top 3 or a top 5 spot. And also some of the people who might not pick other shows throughout the course of the year because of, the lineups that may or may not be there, come to these shows and end up, really lighting up the stage. So, again, sometimes when we talk about the shows having smaller lineups, that can be a good thing for the fans.
It sure can't. Peter, am I missing something? What's missing over here? There's something not.
No, I don't know. I can't
quite place it, but
yeah, it's something to do with he's not wearing lipstick. That's what it is.
Ah, where's the hat, man? You're throwing me off here.
Yeah, I'm trying to fit in. The peer pressure got to me. I tried to for almost 2 years to get Peter to wear a hat in an interview, and he wouldn't do it. So I figured if I can't,
if you would have coiffed like that, you wouldn't cover it up. But Peter, women's physique standing strong here. 25 competitors. I tell you, the girls always come out and support their own. Great lineup here also. Some of the top names in there: Heather Grace, Layla Thompson, Kim Baum. You got a few returning names in there. Looks pretty good.
Yeah, I mean this division is coming on in gangbusters, isn't it? I mean, it's really made a big difference. I love the way a lot of these girls look. I love the presentation. The guys could learn a lot from the posing routines and everything. And, it's a roaring success, the whole division. Heather Grace is probably the favorite for this. She gets very lean. So it'll be interesting. This is the thing. We don't really know them all, so somebody could just walk out the woods,
Well, and like David says, sometimes parody's the best thing because, yeah, you get some superstars in there, nice and all, but it kind of takes out some of that now, and that's going to bring us right into the guys' lineup. We've got a lineup here that we probably don't even know half the lineup, but there's some good bodybuilders in there. I'm looking at Vitaly Fativ. That was in the Arnold, 6th place. To me, easily could have been in the top, could have been in that 4th or 5th spot there. And, of course, the return of Fedorov. That's all the rage tonight.
Yeah, this lineup is, when people were looking at the lineup, like, not a lot of big names. And that's right. There aren't a lot of big names. But I don't want to use the word storylines or whatever, but when you see these guys here, there are definitely some cool storylines. We have Fuad, who got 2nd last year to Branch Warren, missed at FIBO. Fedorov is looking absolutely huge. We have Vitaly. We have Micah Lockett making his pro debut. We have Derek Upshaw, who won his pro card at Team U last year, making his pro debut. Mark Erpelding, after a lot of ups and downs in the 2000s, finally got that pro card at Masters Nationals. He's here. Daniel Toth is here. There's in the Alfonso Del Rio, who in the past, Alfonso hasn't really placed that well. He came up and did his check-in thing, and he looks like he's ready to go. So, again, not a lot of big names, but I think this is going to be a good show.
Sure is. We talk about Fouad Abiad from last year now. I don't want to say it was a controversy, but there's a lot of people who could have had Fouad in first last year. He was having a tough time, though. He was fighting some stomach issues last year, and he really fought through it and earned that spot. But he was slated to go into FIBO, and, of course, that got canceled. The rug kind of got pulled out from under him in the last minute. But luckily, this show is right around the corner. So should he be our odds-on favorite, Peter?
Well, he looked really good in Dallas last year. A lot of people would have put him as the winner. Then he got that stomach problem, had to call it a day for the year. From the photos we've seen, he's as good as last year. So I think he's got to be there at this point in time, all the speculation. He's the front runner. But like David said, and I would use the same word, there's a lot of storylines here. You look at it, And everybody's got a different kind of story. You know, Lockett, you know, his pro debut. Fedorov, we can talk for ages about that story because, you know.
I want to ask you about that story because I know you were talking with him. I know you were catching up, and you were one of the first people that interviewed him when he came on the scene, and literally out of nowhere years ago. Yeah. We all remember that show in Europe where he's sandwiched in between Ronnie and Jay, and arguably maybe even beating him in a few poses. So, but then he completely just disappeared off the map. Then we saw some pictures of him, you know, weighing, you know, $180, you know, and then all of a sudden he's big as a house here. So what's his story?
Well, I mean, that was the 2003 Russian Grand Prix where he finished third behind Jay and Ronnie. And yeah, he was beating him in some poses. 275 pounds, 6'1", 25 years of age. It's phenomenal. But a month before, he'd torn his pec. He still went through with this contest. And it didn't look that damaged because the attrition hadn't taken place. But by the next year in 2005, it had. When he finally competed in the Olympia in 2005, he was way off, blurry, and didn't finish in the first 15. But I think his whole, imagine what it's like. You're 25 years old, people are talking about that you could beat Ronnie Coleman in a couple of years, and then it's taken away like that. So he struggled on to 2006. I think his heart went, you know, not in a sense that he was weak about it, but, you know, just put yourself in that position. He's finishing 10th at the Night of the Champions or the New York Pro. Right. We're going to do an interview with him. We'll get more out of him. But he is a warrior because we offered him an Olympia invitation in 2005, not to qualify because we wanted a big name in the contest. He said, no, I got to qualify. I'm not going to stand on that stage, free ride. I want to be like the other guys, earn my place. So he entered the 2004 Russian Grand Prix and won that. But even then, he wasn't the same. And it's a bit sad, really. But I want to know why he's decided after 8 years, 9 years to come back now. But again, that's another storyline. You know,
he looked big as a house, and he looks like he's in shape. Not just through clothes, obviously, but give me another storyline, David. Who else in this lineup here jumps out at you as somebody we could see in that top 3, top 4?
I think Vitaly Fativ. You know, he looked really good at the Arnold. You know, the one thing I noticed about Vitaly, seeing him just walking around this check-ins, he doesn't look like he's just, you know, he was standing next to Fedorov, and, you know, maybe that's not a fair comparison. But he doesn't look to be quite as big as some of these other guys when you see him walking around. Now, we obviously know that how you look walking around with a jacket and a T-shirt on doesn't necessarily translate to how you're going to look on the stage in a lineup. So I don't know if, you know, if maybe he's downsized a little from the Arnold. It hasn't been that long. We're talking a month and a half. But, you know, going off of, you know, how he looked at the Arnold, he could definitely be in that top 3. I'm really interested to see how Michael Lockett looks up there. You know, the big thing on Lockett, as everybody knows, is his, I believe it's his right leg, is significantly smaller than the other ones. Big enough size discrepancy where it throws off his symmetry quite a bit, and he can't really hide it that well with posing. That said, he looks to be in really incredible shape again, and he's just got something about him. We've talked about this on the forums for years. He's got something about him, whether it's a different density or graininess, that just looks different from the rest.
Myostatin deficiency.
He's got something going on, and he hit a front double bicep for Dan Ray. You guys will be able to check those pictures out in the paparazzi gallery, and from the back, it looks like an absolute crazy rear double bicep. You know, you're hitting it a little bit different, but I'm really interested in to see how he does. You know, Lloyd Dollar, the guy with a ton of potential, you know, hasn't necessarily been realized up until now. So he was pretty much covered up. So it's hard to say what he looks like. But again, it's an interesting show. You know, like, again, it's, you know, we don't have Dexter or Dennis Wolf, but everybody wants to see how all these guys do. You know, I just got done interviewing Derek Upshaw, and if you want to talk about a Skeletor face, Derek's face is, I mean, it is sunk in. So, again, that doesn't necessarily mean he's going to be peeled, but it's usually a pretty good indication that somebody, you know, put in the work. So.
Well, shows like this are made for people to kind of make their way and get their feet wet. So this is a perfect opportunity. Somebody can show themselves up there and steal the thunder and the show away, just like you know, we've seen guys in the past do. And you know, we'll see how it plays out. We're going to be breaking down stuff all day, so that's going to wrap things up here tomorrow. Prejudging 2:30 in the afternoon. Of course, finals the following day at 2:30 as well for the pros, and of course all the NPC action. Stay tuned right here, guys. We'll be having up-to-date action, play-by-play, right from the pit. That's going to wrap things up here in Orlando. For Peter McGuff and David Bay, I'm Bob Chick.